Welcome to the Plague Hive. Back today again with another Plague Hive Pro Tour preparation video. This time I'm playing Arakni Marionette and I'll be testing against Nu. My opponent is Bino, the current German national champion who won the German national championship last year on Nu. And yeah, we decided to just put in a little bit of practice because I figure that Nu is most likely going to be relatively well represented in London. Probably not like the top deck, but I would figure definitely within the top 5, maybe top 3, depending on how it shakes out. So we figured we'd just put a little bit of testing in and see if Marionette actually has the chops to take down Nu, or if this is a matchup that is just very Nu favored. Honestly, I could see it going both ways before we played this. So yeah. We just went into it. I was tanking for a long time. I won the die roll, obviously. So I was like thinking, okay, do I want to go first or second here? I know that Nu's main goal in a matchup like this is probably to fatigue me. Because that's like generally how Nu lists at the moment are set up. They want to go for fatigue. They're very defensive because they have to be because of decks like Aurora being like very prominent in the meta, right? So the Nu decks that you can expect to face usually don't have the aggressive tools to enable like a more mid-rangey back and forth strategy. So you kind of have to go into it expecting that their main goal is going to be to fatigue you. So I was thinking, okay, if the game is going to go to fatigue, going first might be the play, because if Nu goes first, she can strip a couple extra cards out of my deck. I eventually ended up actually going second, because I just figured, okay, it's fine if she goes first and she gets to strip 1 or 2 extra cards. At the end of the day, I'm trying to kill her before she can fatigue me. And going second just gives me tempo. So the idea is, okay, I'm just going to go second. And that's probably going to be better for me than going first would be. Because like at the end of the day, I'm an Assassin deck. Assassin has very bad turn 0 plays most of the time, right? The best you can hope for turn 0 is to set up a couple of key cards in your graveyard, right? Stuff like maybe you find a Leave No Witnesses. You can set that up for a Codex. Same for a CNC. Maybe you find something like a good target for Mantle, right? So you could put like a Bonds of Agony in your graveyard, something like that. That's kind of like the best you can hope for realistically going first. And obviously like getting a tunic counter, setting up a strong arsenal. That's something that might also, help you. But for the most part, you don't really want to go first if you can help it, right? So the equipment is just standard equipment loadout that you can see here, right? So we go in like double clave, obviously no other daggers in the list. Then we go Mask of Deceit, Tunic, Flick Knives, and Snapdragon Scalers. All very, very standard, basically. This deck doesn't run a lot of equipment in the sideboard. You basically just have your AB pieces, and obviously against Nu you don't need those, so... for sideboarding, pretty simple. Surgicals go out, everything else goes in. Like I said, Nu is trying to fatigue us, so the idea here is, okay, let's just, not give her the space to do that, and bring a couple extra cards. As you can see, Bino's at 61 and 4 cards drawn, so he also boarded in a couple extra ones, so he's at 65 to my 69, starting the game. And here he starts with a Beckoning Mistblade. I'm thinking, obviously, I want to block this, but how do I block it, right? So I was thinking, okay, how do I do this? Do I just block with the Lair of the Spider here? So the idea was I let the Mistblade hit, and then he has some kind of blue that has Go Again, right? And then I can put Lair of the Spider on that. Problem here being he didn't. And Lair of the Spider was just used as a 3-block, which is fine. I don't want to let Art of Desire Body hit. And if I block with an action card, like Savor Bloodshed or Command and Conquer, he gets the life gain, he gets to draw a card, stuff like this. So this is not terrible, but obviously if I had used the Lair on one of the daggers, he would be marked right now, which would make this Savor a lot more like threatening, obviously, right? But yeah, so my play is pretty straightforward. I just go Saver into Hunter's Clave. I could flick here, and I do think about, do I want to flick here, right? So I eventually end up actually flicking. He discards Shelter to prevent the flick, also preventing 1 damage from the hit, and then I go in with Command and Conquer, and he has a hand that apparently cannot defend against it, so he just lets it hit. Takes the 5 damage in this case. Arsenal's gone, and then he just comes in with Pain in the backside. So our hand here is kind of like, I'm not thrilled about seeing all of my codexes this early when I don't really have anything in the graveyard to use them with. So that's obviously not great, but his turn is just Pain in the backside, play a Sigil, pass, and then it's back to us. We do have another Saver here, so we can swing the Clave, use Scar Tissue on that for an extra 3 damage, and then Arsenal a D-React. Pretty solid. Not thrilled to go into his turn with him on a 5-card hand, obviously, but we've got the Arsenal here. We flip into Orb Weaver, which is actually pretty good because we already used the flick, so we have a spot here to get an extra dagger. And our hand is like full-on assassin cards, so that's also fine. Tunic's coming up, which is also not bad, but... So his turn is Pass Over and Preserve Tradition, banishing Hunter's Clave from our graveyard, which makes sense because we do run upsticks. So we could get that back at a later point, and just wants to prevent that. So he's now hitting us with the Mistblade. We know he still has another Chi in the hand from this line, but generally Mistblade is not something you can block in this matchup. You just don't really have the cards for it. We do run Shelter, so if you find a Shelter, it's pretty nice. You just discard the Shelter, and then you can, block the Mistblade and fade some extra damage. Pretty nice. But for the most part, you're not really, blocking Mistblade. We get hit with the Mask here. We have to banish the Codex. So basically, all of our Codexes are now gone. We had to pitch the first, block, pitch the second, and then banish the third, so no Codex of Frailty here. Very annoying. He does get the levels full effect, all 3 modes active, or rather go again from the Mistblade, and then, +2 and draw a card, so pretty good line. This is just vanilla damage, so we're like, okay, we're not blocking this. And this is a surgical, we are blocking this. The fact that he had to pitch a Hiss here tells us that he most likely does not have a D-React, an attack reaction to pump this over, so we can just block with the Sync, call it a day. Our hand's pretty good. We can just go Kiss of Death, Tarantula Toxin, and discard the Art of Desire for a Graphene. So that's definitely not bad. We get the Graphene for free. We get +3 on the next stealth attack, so we're just going to send the Kiss of Death, swing that for 6. And then use Tarantula Toxin on it, so pretty solid. He didn't block. I was like, okay, if you don't block, I got no reason to use the Toxin here. So you want to convert Tarantula Toxin for 6 whenever you can. So I was like, okay, I'll just let you use the D-React. If you don't have a D-React, I'm happy, with just hitting for 6 here. He does have another D-React and then another D-React, so he just gets to cover this up completely. He does stay marked, though, which is pretty good. And he's on a 2-card hand, so he's just passing, arsenaling a card. His hand was just very, very block-heavy. Couldn't really convert offensively, so... this turn is a little bit weird for us. So what we're doing here is we're sending Graphene for 2 go again. He's probably happy to take this just to get rid of the mark, which is fine. And then we send the Hunter's Clave, and then we can use Tunic and a CNC to send a CNC. He does have that all you got here, which is kind of annoying. But it doesn't really matter because our turn wouldn't have ended with him being marked anyways. So no big deal there. He's on a 4-card hand, sending Leave No with 3 cards left. So this is basically saying, yeah, he has a Hiss here. Very, very telegraphed Hiss. in this position. Our hand's kind of like not too good. We've got a cloth that we can't really use because we don't have tunic up. We can probably mark him since we have the Lair of the Spider in Arsenal, so that's not too bad. But the graphene not being free is a problem here, so... he did have the hiss, like I said, so gets to banish a one-off codex, pretty good. Gives him a silver. And then he has 2 resources left to do something with. And he just sends the CNC here. So this makes sense. Like, obviously, with the Leave No Witnesses already hitting and us having played something from Banished, from Arsenal, this has no on-hit. This is like a vanilla 6. But it's still 6, right? So he puts us to 20. He's at 21. Overall, not too bad. And our hand's a little bit awkward because, like, we don't really have resources to swing a dagger here, but the cut doesn't really do anything. So we use it here. He has a couple of cards. He has one That All You Got, which is fine. Double Trouble and double Surgical Extraction for the rest. So we pitch this, send a Graphene for 6, go again. All right. He's blocking this for 4. And then we just send the Infiltrate to follow up. We could lead with the Infiltrate for the 4 here. The problem with this is if you don't have an attack reaction to back up your attack, right? And they can just block it out, which is relatively easy for new to do. You then don't really have a follow-up. So this is kind of, yeah, not amazing. So he's just sending the Surgical here. We do have the Fate Foreseen to cleanly cover this. And then obviously that has the risk of him using Arousing Wave. But I'm like, okay, I'm fine with this trade. Like, because this hand is relatively flexible, right? No matter which card he takes with the Surgical here, I still have some kind of play. So I'm going, okay, if you want to use Arousing Wave here, I'm fine with this. I get rid of Arousing Wave. It's not being used for bonds. And he's smart enough to realize that's not a good trade, so he doesn't use it here. He's saying, okay, sure, I'm fine with this, you know. So yeah, I'm just sending Hunter's Clave here. Then swing the Leave No and Arsenal just a nick. He does actually block Hunter's Clave, which is good because like on this turn cycle it's completely useless for me. Like it doesn't really matter if he's marked. So I don't really care. And getting rid of a Codex is obviously good for us. He blocks this for value. I get a Venomous Bite off the top. Pretty decent. Get 1 silver. Not that I can really do anything with it. Right, so he has Tunic up. He has a blue pitched. He's attacking with Spider's Bite. So this is a Codex line, right? Especially the fact that he blocked with a Codex basically tells us the last card in his hand is a Codex. So we know we're gonna get hit with a CNC because he has one in the graveyard, which means unfortunately we kind of have to block this Spider's Bite, which is annoying because we have a pretty good bonds line in our hand. But because of the CNC coming up, we have to protect that Justinic and Arsenal. And because of Spider's Bite, we can't really let the Spider's Bite hit. Otherwise, we can't really block any of the other cards. So I'm tanking on this block for a long time because it's like, it's really annoying, right? I can only use my attacks to block if I actually have the... if I'm not hit with Spider's Bite, because otherwise they just block for 2. So I'm tanking for a while, and I eventually I decide to use Mask of Deceit here. The reason why I use it on the dagger here is it's 1 extra life. That's it, right? It's literally just, okay, if I block like this, I take no damage this turn. If I let the Spider's Bite hit and then block with 2 attacks and the Mask of Deceit, I take 1 extra damage. Only difference here. In theory, this is a little bit more telegraphed. If he doesn't have Codex here, this line is worse. But this is like if you see this play from an assassin, especially with him blocking Codex the turn before, it's like a 95% chance he has Codex in hand. At least 95%, probably more. So I'm just sending the bonds here. I got Justinic, I got Tunic for stains, and then I can use either Flick Knives or Snapdragons to cover it up. So he's blocking for 7 here, which means if he has a D-React, he can go up to 11. I'm coming in for 12 once this all has resolved, so I'm okay with this. And I use Flick on the Graphene here because, like, you know, it's a Graphene. I can always make more of them. I still have a couple of Spinnerets in my deck. I could potentially roll into Orb Weaver again, so that's one of the good things about this deck is you can pretty freely flick your Graphenes or generally your daggers because you have so many ways to just make extra daggers. So yeah, I'm just taking away all of his prognoses here. Pretty good. He did block with the Art of Desire Mine because he had another one in hand, obviously, which is like also sensible, but I'm just like, okay, you got 1 blue and 1 card in Arsenal. I got all of your prognosis, very happy with this. And I got to deal 5 damage. I'm currently up 10 cards in deck and 9 life. I'm good. Like, this game is going pretty well for me, right? He just sends the Art of Desire Mind. Not very threatening. I'm like, okay, worst case, I have a shelter if I need to. But yeah, that's kind of it. Not really much else going on. And he has the Homage. So he does get to strip a card here, which is a bit annoying. But it's like, okay, I take 1 damage. I can work with this. And here I'm like, okay, what do I do here? Because this hand has a couple of lines, right? I can do Upsticks into Kiss. Arsenal the Shelter. I could go Upsticks into Kiss, use Snapdragons, and then into Leave No. So a couple of options that I have here. So I'm thinking initially, okay, I might want the Shelter in Arsenal just to have a D-React, right? And then we were like, while we were playing, we were having a talk about it. And this is what I like to do during testing, right? If I'm testing with somebody that I know, I like to make plays that I would consider optimal in the situation, right? Because you want to test against someone that plays in an ideal way, essentially. You want to win a game because you drew better, played better, had the better list, not because your opponent made a mistake that cost them the game, right? When you're training, obviously. When you're in a live situation and your opponent makes a mistake, you try to capitalize on that, makes sense. But during testing, I try to work towards optimal lines. So we were talking about this a little bit. What should I go for in this spot, right? I'm up, bunch of cards, I'm up in life. I have complete tempo right now. So my reasoning was, okay, I will banish the Shelter in the end, right? Just to keep pressure here. Because this hand is actually threatening lethal right now. I'm coming in with the Kiss of Death for 7. On hit, 1 damage, right? So it's 8. And then with the Snapdragons, I can give it go again. I use Leave No Witnesses as a follow-up. And then I can flick the Kiss of Death for an extra 2. So this line is like 7, right? Then it's 8, then it's 12, and then it's like 14. So it's 1 over lethal, actually. And I just figured, or rather we figured after talking about it for a little bit, okay, this way I get to keep complete tempo. He's on a 5-card hand right now because he got pretty lucky with the Art of Desire Mind, banishing a blue off the top so he could draw a replacement card for his arsenal, gain a life. Very good stuff. I have the Leave No Witnesses here, so I'm even threatening the arsenal right now. And if he has a bunch of non-blocks in hand, that could be pretty annoying for him to deal with. He does end up actually giving me a bunch of equipment. I do banish the arsenal, banish another card off the top. And then I get to flick the flicked a Kiss of Death for an extra 2 damage. So he's on a 3-card hand right now. 4-card hand rather with Bonds. And I have dealt 2. He's at 2. I still have Flick Knives. I have an Orb Weaver in hand, which means I can potentially get another dagger. So I basically have guaranteed lethal right now. If I can survive long enough, right? And this is a little bit unfortunate because this Orb Weaver would be very good right now. But if he's keeping 4 cards to send the Bonds, I have to think that he has a way to convert this. I haven't seen a Justinic from him so far. So I'm like, I have to block here. I have to make my blocking decisions assuming that he is capable of converting this Bonds, of turning it live. He doesn't have Tunic anymore, but he can just like pitch a blue or pitch any card, crack Wave or Boots, right? And then have Justinic. So I'm just talking through the math here. This Bonds could be anywhere from like 5 to basically 12, 13-ish. That's like the range I'm working with. So the problem is I cannot cover this completely, right? I can, in theory, just give my whole hand here. Just go like, okay, I don't care. This Bonds isn't doing anything, right? But that doesn't really make any sense in this situation, right? So, yeah. I'm just going through his graveyard, checking like his banished zone, everything. Seeing what has he played so far. What can I expect? How much damage is this Bonds potentially gone into connect with, right? So it's tricky. That's the problem with Bonds, right? He was in the same situation earlier when I played my first Bonds, and I feel like a lot of the times, right, Assassin Mirror comes down to who gets to resolve Bonds first for like a relevant, on-hit effect. Some damage, strip a couple of cards. That's really relevant. It's really one of the cards that the entire matchup kind of like, revolves around. And this goes for basically any assassin, not just, new Mirror. This is like Marionette against new, Slippy against new. Probably not Azuri because like she's kind of the worst assassin at playing Bonds of Agony, generally. But yeah. So I end up blocking with Orb Weaver and Orb Weaver, which hurts because like I really want to play an Orb Weaver to get my Graphene back so I can flick. But I can't block for just 3 here. It's like I could probably just block with one of the Orb Weavers, keep the other in hand, but then like he is going to hit, so he's definitely going to connect, and I have no way of like covering this. So I do actually cover it up in the end, taking no damage. But I also don't really have anything to do here. So he does have a Codex as a follow-up, which hurts a lot. Because that means, okay, I don't have a hand here anymore. I'm just going to go, okay, grab, leave, no. He sends the CNC, I take 6. I have no turn. He has a 5-card hand. That's hurtful, right? So my turn is just, okay, tick up Tunic, pass. That's it. He's sending Out of Desire Body here, which telegraphs to me he has a Hiss again. His hand is apparently very clunky, though, because he has no blues in hand. So I fortunately only take 6 here, which means I can just go, okay, up sticks into Graphene for 8. I have Scar Tissue and Tarantula Toxin, which means he's dead here. Like, he's at 6, and I can just put this up to 11, reduce his blocks to 0. So I'm coming in for 14. He can block an extra 4 with the Sink. He has another Sink, right? So he has a bunch of defensive options here. He even has that All You Got, so he does actually survive this turn. And I'm just like, okay, sure. I'm okay with this outcome. Like, he gives me 4 cards here, and I still deal 3, which is like, fine. Put him to 3. I do think about actually flicking here, because it's just flick for an extra damage on the Graphene, and then obviously 1 damage. So I put him to 1, which basically means, okay, I just need to survive 1 turn. I can flick again, he's dead. unless he finds a sigil. I flip into the worst potential agent here, which is Trapdoor, because like he has no turn, so Trapdoor does nothing. I do figure, okay, I actually want to banish a trap here, simply because I don't want to draw it. So the idea here is, okay, I have complete tempo. The last thing I want in my hand right now is a D-React, so I just get rid of one extra D-React. He's still marked, which is great. So I know he has the sigil, so just flicking is not going to kill him. But now I'm coming in for a cloth, plus a Orb Weaver, so this is coming in for 8. He does play the sigil. And I know his last card in hand is a Transcend card. So I just flick. And this is coming in for lethal. So that's the game. Okay, so this was game 1, right? And we were talking about the game, and it was like, okay, he drew a couple of kind of like bricky hands, right? Which is a side effect of going above 60, right? Sometimes you draw hands that are just like, okay, full of attack reactions, D-reacts, stuff like that. And that's something that's a lot more relevant for new than for Marionette, because the way that the Marionette deck is set up is like all of your sideboard cards are basically good. They all work. You can just go full, fat deck, bring everything. Your ratios are fine, and the deck still functions. And this is what, this first game showed. And then we went like, okay, you know what? Let's see how reliable this is. Let's just do a rematch, like no sideboarding. We just do a quick rematch. Everything's the same. Deck stays the same. Even the starting player doesn't change. So we just go quick rematch. And we just go. And it's again starts with him on the play. I'm second player. So I again have a Lair of the Spider in my opening hand. And I have a Save a Bloodshed and a Kiss of Death, which is pretty good. So here I'm thinking about, okay, should we go back to sideboarding? And he's like, yeah, no, it's fine. Like, let's just play it and let's just see how it goes. Because like in the end, we figured it doesn't really matter that much who goes first or second. Like it's probably slightly better to go second, but in the long run, it doesn't matter that much. So here I decide to just do what I didn't do in the first game and just use the Lair of the Spider turn 0 just to start with him marked. So my hand's pretty okay. I just have Savor Bloodshed, Kiss of Death, a blue which I can use to dagger. Pretty good. So I just go Savor into Kiss of Death for 8. On hit, go again. Pretty solid. He just instantly gives me 3 cards here. I'm like, okay, sure. Arsenal the D-React. I'm fine with this, And he just straight passes back. He just goes, okay, sure. I just pass back. So this is a little bit awkward. And potentially I should have, played around that a little bit. Because this Fate Foreseen now means I don't get to actually Arsenal my Death Touch, which is annoying. Fortunately, I flipped into Black Widow here. So I do have a way to convert this Death Touch in a weird way, but, it works. So I flick the dagger here just to be able to equip the Calicera. He's still marked, and I send the Out of Desire Body for 4. I could have attacked with the Calicera for an extra damage here, but I figure I just want to ideally use the buff from the Spinneret on the Out of Desire. So I use Black Widow. He has a D-React. All good, right? He's sending Surgical. This is a little bit annoying because, like, obviously he could have the attack reaction in the arsenal here. And he probably does. Fortunately, depending on which one it is, so this is kind of like a weird situation. If this is a hiss, I'm good, right? Because I have Under the Trapdoor, so I can get back the lair from my graveyard to cover that up. see the Tarantula Toxin, leave that on the top. Unfortunately, it's a Venomous Bite, which means that he's going to come in for 8, and my Under the Trapdoor can't fully cover this up. So this is kind of annoying, because now obviously he gets to take a card, and he's probably going to take the Codex here just because it's like the highest value card that he can grab from my hand right now. So I decide to just, not block it. I won't use the trapdoor here to save extra 3. I just go, okay, whatever, hit me. I still want to have a turn in some way. And that turn is probably going to involve me pitching to some extent. So he tanks for a little bit and then eventually decides to grab the Codex just because it's the highest value card. So that makes sense. Okay. So go into my turn. I have a Tunic coming up. So this turn actually would work without the blue. It's just better with the blue. So I'm baseline Marionette again. So I start the turn. I'm thinking if I should swing Clay first or swing Calicera. And I decide to rather swing the Calicera for 2. And then use Cloth to pump the Hunter's Clave, which makes it more annoying for him to block, right? So, and then I get to maybe mark him again. So now I see his hand is Leaf Node, Bonds of Attraction, Grain, and Levels. Pretty good. I send this. He just blocks it for 6. Pretty simple. So now he has like 2 Chi in hand. I know that my next card is gonna connect here because he can't block. He has 2 Chi, right? He has 1 Chi and he has the Leaf Node. So he's blocking with that. And then he puts the Grains into Arsenal. So it's fine. He just blocks out whatever I do. He's not marked anymore, which is kind of annoying here. So a lot of what this deck does just gets a lot better when the opponent is marked. And when you're playing against an opponent that is very defensive and can just play around your marks a lot, it can sometimes get harder to actually do something, right? That is definitely a problem that the deck has against very defensive opponents. It can be tricky to keep marking them. And especially once you flick that first Hunter's Clave, you only have one way to consistently mark. So if they just keep giving you cards for this, you're not going to be able to mark, and it's going to be kind of annoying. So I'm just sending the Prognosis here. I do have Take Up the Mantle to push it up to 3, but that's like not terribly good. He decides to block, but he does have the D-React to cover it up. So he's like, okay, if I need to cover this, I can. It's fine. I just Arsenal Shelter. I'm okay. And now, unfortunately, he has Bonds. He has Tunic up. I have to imagine this Bonds is going to come in for 9. He probably has a Justinic here. That's generally what you can assume is going to happen. He hasn't played one yet. Other options he could have is a Chi and then like a Levels, or not Levels, like a Hiss or a Venomous Bite. So this can come in from it can come in for 7, 8, or potentially 9, maybe also just 5. Depends on what exactly he has, right? Could also be 10 if he uses a Rousing Wave. So the math with Bonds of Agony is very tricky to figure out, because there's a wide range of potential power that the card can actually get depending on which specific attack reactions the opponent uses on it. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I block here? What can I play to fully cover this up? And yeah, what are my blocks to make that happen, right? So I know I have a D-React in Arsenal here, which is pretty good. But what does the rest of my turn look like? What am I doing here, right? Obviously, ideally, I want to keep the Prognosis and Justinic here. So if I just use Leave No Witnesses, Scar Tissue, and the Direct in Arsenal, I can cover 9, which is fine if he has Justinic and then uses Stilettos. If he has Justinic and uses Arousing Wave, it's not fine. If he has some other stuff, it's even trickier. So, yeah, that's the problem with new. Like, you can't really play around stuff. I know he has the grains in the arsenal here, right? So I know he has the chi, which is annoying. And I forgot about that actually for a second, so we decide to rewind. I did have that info. So that's another problem. I know I can't really block 5 here because then he uses grains. He pushes this up to 2. I have to banish a card, so I'm banishing the Scar Tissue. It's a mess, right? Blocking this card is just a mess. He does have the Hiss here, so he goes up to 8. And now the problem is I'm blocking 7. So yeah, you see where this is going. There's no good way for me to block this card here. Like, no matter what I do, and specifically because it was grains. If he had any other chi, it would be fine. I would be blocking for 7, all good. Unfortunately, he's coming in for 8. So I don't think there's any way for me to block this turn that works. Probably I should have maybe blocked with Justinic or Prognosis. Probably Justinic. And then might keep the Scar Tissue. And my turn is just... it doesn't matter. Like I don't think there's any way I could have played this outside of just overblocking that doesn't result in me getting blown out. It's just unfortunate. There's no way to block this specific hand in a clean way. Just doesn't work. So my turn is just, okay, I am going to send the Prognosis here. He's forced to give me a card, basically. Unfortunately, he has that all you got, so he doesn't really have to give me a card. And you can start to see this game kind of slipping away from me a little bit, right? So I just went into the Bonds turn, didn't really do anything. He has a 4-card hand to crack back with. I still can't block back in the Mistblade. Unfortunately, I have to let this hit. I can't give him a card here, so kind of unfortunate. I do have the Trapdoor, so I could grab a Lair here. And yeah, problem with Lair is then my turn kind of doesn't work because I don't have a blue. So yeah, it's just overall kind of unfortunate. He does have the Justinic, so he gets rid of another Codex. Very annoying. So again, right, all of my Codex of Frailties are not doing anything. In the first game I had to pitch them. Second game they're just getting banished. Very unfortunate. I am grabbing Death Touch here, which is pretty good. Definitely one of the better cards I could have in the arsenal here. And I know that he's gonna send Leave No Witnesses after this, which I have to give 2 cards to. Also annoying. First I have to discard here. But yeah, he's just stripping cards. You can see the cards in deck kind of dwindling down, right? I started with a 5-card advantage over him. And I'm now down like 44 to 42. So by the time I finish my turn, he's up 2 cards in deck. I just sent a Death Touch for 5 here. Pretty good. He has to give me 2 cards. And he doesn't have to, but he's doing it. So yeah, he's up 10 life. He's up cards in deck. So this game's not looking as good as the first one, right? And it's primarily because he got to resolve the first impactful bonds, right? Same as last game. Last game, I got the first bonds. That was good. This game, he gets the first bonds. That's good. So this is a lot of the times the Assassin Mirror kind of comes down to who gets the better disruptive hand who gets to steal tempo first and then kind of keep it and do something with it. And all assassin lists have like a chance to brick, right? That's definitely something that can happen. So you have to be mindful. He has another codex here. He has another leave no witnesses, which is saver for me. So unfortunate I don't have a D-react here. If I had a 4-block here, this would be pretty good. I would have a way to cleanly block this, still have a pretty decent turn. This way I am again forced to give him 2 cards, which is very annoying and does not help me with not getting fatigued. So I'm just thinking here, okay, how do I play this? Which cards do I want to keep is the main question. Problem is I even have a frailty. So my line of just going saver into a dagger is even worse. I'm tanking on blocks because this is I'm thinking about using Mask of Deceit here. Just to be able to keep a 2-card hand, so I can go like saver, clave, flick Killisera, and then play the Spinneret and send another Killisera just to have some extra damage, right? Which is unfortunate because that line plays into frailty quite a bit. So eventually I just go like, okay, no, not really worth it, not really worth the giving up the hat here. So I just go, okay, never mind. I just send the Art of Desire. I keep the saver for another day because it's like, it's just so bad. He has, again, that all you got. So he gets to block for free, basically, with impunity. Very, very annoying. So my hand here has 2 blocks, which is also not great. I decide to give one of them to the Mistblade here. He sends Dagger again, which tells me his hand is not great. And then he does send the CNC. So it's like, okay, maybe his hand was good. And he's just pitching the Fate Foreseen, like, to kind of mislead me, right? Which worked. So yeah, I am forced to give the hat here. I turn into Tarantula, which is actually not terrible in this spot. I don't actually mind this. I can't really discard to it. So kind of whatever. But because I have Clave and the follow-up Killisera, the Tarantula is actually kind of impactful. I'm just thinking if I should use Clave first or Saver first, right? So the problem is if I just Saver here, he 100% just gives me 2 cards. So I'm like, okay, maybe if I send a Clave, right, he's not going to block it, and my turn gets a lot better. Unfortunately, he has the Fate Foreseen here, which is like, okay, a little bit overkill, but, you know, fair. And here I do something that's pretty risky. I flick my last Hunter's Clave to get the drop. The reasoning here, right? And I wanna pause the video for a second here. Why did I flick the Hunter's Clave here? It leaves me with no Hunter's Clave, obviously, which is not a great spot to be in, right? So the reasoning for this line is I am behind at this spot, like quite a bit. It doesn't look like much, right? I'm like 6 life behind, 3 cards in deck. It's not terrible, right? But I don't really have tempo. Like, he has been basically having tempo the entire game, more or less, right? He hasn't really bricked that hard yet. Like, he's mostly just been keeping up a constant stream of disruption mixed with some damage. I'm behind in life. I'm behind in cards. So I need to make slightly riskier plays at this point, right? In order to get back into the game. So my reasoning was, okay, I'm at 30 cards in deck. I started with 69. I have not seen a single upsticks yet, right? and the list runs 3 copies of Upsticks and run. So it's fine to use the Hunter's Clave here in order to just, get a chance to re-equip it later. I have Tunic coming up, and I haven't seen an Upsticks yet. And as you can see, in the very next hand, I actually draw an Upsticks and run. So I'm like, okay, cool, this is working out. I got my Tunic coming up. This is fine, right? So let's continue the video. He's sending the Art of Desire body on a full hand again. So I'm like, okay, sure, this is a hiss. I'm okay with this. Worst case, I can sink below. If that's all he does, I'm okay with that. If he's just, pumping it by something, I can't really afford to block this. Problem with Art of Desire body is also like, if I block it with Infiltrate, he banishes it, draws a card, all of that stuff. Unfortunately, he does hit the red off the top. And what happens then is he has pass over and path well traveled. And he just uses path well traveled in the damage step to give his attack go again, which, also works. I figured this would have go again here at some point. So now he sends the Prognosis. I block with Infiltrate. It's annoying. I know he has another Chi. I'm forced to banish the Sink Below here. Just so I actually have a turn. He ends up pumping it over the top. Yeah. So, yeah, my turn is not looking great. Yep. And then he hits another red off the top. He takes my Upstick. So, yeah. This turn was just, not going my way. Not much I can do here. I have 1 dagger. I don't have a way to mark. I just send to Leave No Witnesses. Knowing he has a D-React, most likely he does have the D-React in Arsenal, so that's not doing anything. I'm just arsenaling the bonds and just, keep trying. I know I still have 2 Upsticks left in the deck, so I can definitely get back one of my Hunter's Claves. It's not terrible. But, yeah. Getting hit with that in the turn where I drew up the Upsticks was pretty rough, so... So I have Bonds of Agony. I have no way of turning it on right now, so that's not really doing anything. I do play this. He just has a Sigil, so he goes up to 37. I haven't really managed to scratch at his life totals a lot. He does play Sigils, obviously, right? So that is helpful. But, yeah. So I have a couple options here. I can play the Prognosis. I can play the Bonds, hoping to sort of bait him into blocking. And I figure, okay, I kind of want to, just go for the better value line. So I just play the Cut. And then I see that his hand is not really doing anything. So his hand is Codex of Frailty, Sigil of Solace, Sink Below, and Hiss. So he has no attacks. So I go okay, pass. And then I flip into Trapdoor, which is the absolute worst thing that could happen at this spot is flipping into Trapdoor. Every single other agent would have been fine. Trapdoor definitely isn't. I declined to banish a trap here. And then, of course, I draw a trap. I declined to banish because I'm behind 6 cards in deck. So I just went okay, I don't want to get any more cards out of my deck than I need to. Literally any other agent in this spot would have been fine. I have a Calicera, so all of the dagger agents are fine. I have stealth cards in hand. I have a stealth card in arsenal. So any reaction agent would have been fine. The only thing that's not fine is flipping into Trapdoor right now. Not gonna lie to you, this specific moment in the game is leading me to reconsider playing Marionette. Because, you have the element of chance with these agents. And this specific list, right, that Tom has been cooking up, mostly eliminates the bad side of variance, right? Because it's so dagger focused, you can usually use all of the agents. Because you can either use them on your daggers or you can use them on your stealth cards. Either way, you have targets for stuff. But if you flip into Trapdoor at the wrong time, it's absolutely backbreaking. And Trapdoor is by far the worst of the agents, I feel like, in a lot of situations. It's forcing you to run traps, which isn't great, right? So it's like, it's just, yeah, he has another Codex here. He has another CNC. So yeah, I'm just gonna, okay, I'll block 6 here. I have the up sticks. I have Tunic up, so I can at least use that. It's not terrible. Obviously, it's not amazing. So I just get back the Hunter's Clave, and then I send a Kiss of Death for 7. Like, it's not terrible, right? Could be worse. Let's put it that way. Considering I just got hit with a Codex turn, this is not bad. He blocks for 6, so he gets rid of the mark, and he really doesn't care about life totals at this point. Like, he's at 38 to my 20. I'm down 8 cards in deck at this point, so it's like, yeah, okay, what am I gonna do, you know? So I use the Lair to mark him again because I know he has another CNC coming up here. Or, I mean, I don't know it, but I kind of figure he does. And then, yeah, I just go this. Infiltrate. I have Stains to follow it up. So I can go actually over the top here, which is pretty good. And now something funny happens. Infiltrate banishes a Justinic. So I'm like, okay, hang on a second. I have a Justinic now. He already has an arsenal. So if I grab Leaving the Witnesses here, it's kind of like, it's okay, you know, it's fine. But there's no guarantee that I'm going to find something that I can use that Justinic on in my next turn. So I'm just going to use it now. So I just grab a Prognosis from my own graveyard. I send that, and I know that he knows that I have his Justinic, obviously, so I can pump this to 6. He blocks for 3. I use Justinic. He does have the D-React here, so he has the That All You Got. So the end result is kind of the same. This is the same. That would, like, if I had just played the Leaving the Witnesses, probably the exact same thing would have happened. And I did actually draw under the Trapdoor here, so I could have potentially used the Justinic in this turn, but yeah. Like, realistically, I already know I'm going to lose this game, right? I'm behind in life and cards, so we're just playing it, you know, to see how it ends up. How far can I take this? The good thing about this Marionette deck is, like, you don't really have a bad second cycle. As long as you pitch like 1 or 2 decent cards in the first cycle, you're fine. Or you sink them, or, you know, whatever. Your second cycle is pretty good because you're so dagger focused. You can usually make something work, right? Even when you're on like very low cards. I don't want to retrieve here. I just send a Calicera for 8. Pretty solid. And I have Tarantula Toxin. So he does block just for value, which means I get full value in the Tarantula Toxin, which is actually a pretty good way to equalize here, not gonna lie. So problem is he's sending Leave No Witnesses while he still has 2 cards left. I figure, okay, that means he does have some kind of attack reaction. He actually ends up just having double chi, which is still fine. So he masks me. I go, okay, what's the least value card here? Pain in the backside. And then I just use the thing. So overall, not terrible. And he can't really... He arsenal whatever he drew off the Rising Sun. So I go Cloth. This time his hand is like slightly better. Playable, at least. He has Bonds of Agony. Okay, so he's marked, which means the Saver is now better. Coming in for 6 go again. He does give me the draw here, so I draw Kiss of Death. And now I'm thinking, do I Arsenal this or do I send it immediately? What's the play here? So I know he doesn't really have Arsenal hate, but he does have the bonds. So I go like, okay, I have a Tarantula Toxin still left in the deck. It's probably better if I just pair the Kiss of Death with that and then maybe use Snapdragons to make a play there. So I know he has a Chi, right? And he has some random card that he put into Arsenal that he drew off the Rising Sun that I don't know about. So again, I'm in this spot. He plays Bonds. How do I block this, right? The eternal question. I do have 2 D-reacts here, which is pretty solid. Can't really complain about that. Unfortunately, I'm also at 5 cards in deck. So the turn that I have right now is probably like the last somewhat decent turn that I have left in the game. So I'm just like, okay, how high can he push this, right? If he just has the Chi, he can still go like crack Tunic, crack Arousing Wave, come in for 5. So a single D-react doesn't cover it, which is annoying. Yeah, so Nu is unfortunately just a lot better than all of the other assassins at resolving Bonds of Agony. And Bonds of Agony is just one of the best cards in the class if you can reliably resolve it. That's just how it is, right? So I just go, okay, let's see what you do. I do need to banish the Bonds of Agony here, unfortunately. He does have a Venomous Bite, puts that up to 8. It's like, I'm okay, I can work with this. I have 2 cards here, so I can actually cover this up. Unfortunately, he has another card left in hand. So I'm like, okay, if I block this out here, you just pitch that last card, you activate Arousing Wave, and then you still get to banish my Toxin, which is exactly what ends up happening. So he pushes this up to 9, banishes the Toxin. He has another one. It's just, yeah, it's just bad. And at that point, I just concede. I know I have like nothing left in the deck. Yeah, I'm behind in life. I'm behind in cards. There's no way for me to actually get back here. I did have a couple of turns that looked like somewhat decent towards the end there. So if you look at the life totals here, we're at like 14 to 17. So I did manage to at least equalize the life totals, even though we were sitting at like basically 20 to 40 at some point, right? I had a couple of pretty good turns that I was able to convert for some pretty decent damage. But realistically, even if I survive this Bonds, right, and my hand is like Tarantula, Toxin, Kiss of Death, and then I can go like Snapdragons into Chelicera, flick the Kiss of Death, right, which is pretty good. It's like this comes in for 3. If he blocks it, which he probably will, the Toxin puts it up to 6, reduces his block, so that's 6, then 7 from the hit, then 1 from the Chelicera. So we're sitting at 8, and then another 2 from the flick. So 10 damage, so he goes down to 7. Problem with that is after that turn, I just draw basically the last hand that I have, and it's not going to be a good one. So yeah, that's why I figured, okay, realistically, I could have conceded fairly long time ago, right? When you play against Nu and you're losing, you typically tend to notice that you're losing at some point relatively early into the game, or like maybe not relatively early, but in like the mid game or so. You're like, okay, I don't really see a way of getting out of here unless Nu bricks for like several turns in a row, which is kind of unlikely to happen. And I mean, he did have a pretty massive brick, right? Which I could actually capitalize on thanks to the cut from the same cloth. I was able to brick, and then unfortunately, I rolled into Trapdoor, and my next hand was just like not doing anything. So it happens, right? Variance. But it's a problem. And the problem against Nu specifically is once you're at that point where you recognize I am probably going to lose this game, it normally still takes you like 15 to 20 minutes to actually lose it. And you have to keep playing because, hey, they might brick, you might get back into the game, but like 80% of the time you don't, and you just lose this game. And that's, I think, what makes her so frustrating to play against, is that a lot of the times players will be able to spot that they're losing and still have to play out the game because Nu just takes a long time to win because she's not a very, like, a damaging deck, right? Her numbers aren't great, so she takes a long time to actually finish you. And I think that contributes to why she's an unpopular deck to play against. A lot of people don't like playing against Nu, and I get that. Like, I fully understand it, but yeah. So, anyways, this was Marionette against Nu. Showing you basically how that matchup can go. Either way, I don't think it's terribly unfavored for Marionette. I want to say probably like 55-45 in favor of Nu, something like that, I would say. Like I said earlier, a lot of it just comes down to tempo, right? Who gets to have tempo first and then keep it basically and convert that tempo into like a meaningful advantage. In the case of the second game, as we could see, Bino was able to leverage the tempo that he got from the first Bonds of Agony that he played. And he got to keep that tempo for 5-6 turns in a row, something like that. Until he eventually bricked. I got tempo back, so for the last couple of turns, I actually had pretty decent tempo, right? I managed to reduce his life totals from like 38 to 17 that we're at now, but he managed to get it back with another Bonds. But realistically, even if that Bonds hadn't been there and he wouldn't have been able to connect it, the fact that I'm at 5 cards while he's at 15 and he still has a life lead on me means I just lose this game relatively deterministically just due to fatigue, which I think is like Nu's primary win condition in this matchup anyway. So you can win by playing it aggressively, but it essentially comes down to how do you draw your cards and do you get tempo before Nu manages to gain tempo and take the game away with it. So yeah, that was the Marionette versus Nu. If you got any questions or you got any comments about this matchup, maybe you have some strategies that worked for you consistently and you want to share them, please leave them down in the comments below the video, and see you guys in the next one.